On today's special episode of Homeworthy, we're bringing you the crème de la crème of Southern style. From Atlanta to Dallas, these 5 tastemakers have designed their homes to be the pinnacle of hospitality and tradition. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Like and subscribe for more.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Suzy. Welcome to my church home. Come on in. Hi, I'm Suzy Batiz. I am the Chief Executive and Visionary Officer for Poopery Supernatural and my personal development course, Alive OS. Right now we're in Dallas, Texas, and we're in my home. It's my church home. I live in an old church. I live in a 120-year-old St. John's Methodist church. So I ended up living in a church. My daughter was dating someone that had grown up in a little small white church in upstate New York. And I started looking for churches online. I really thought I was going to buy a little tiny white church out in the country that I would have as a second home, or like a little weekend home. And I saw this particular church online. It was way above my budget at the time, so I let that dream, go away. A few years later, I was getting my hair done, and there was so much synchronicity. My hairdresser at the time said, I'm going to go help someone move, and they happen to be living in a church they're trying to sell. And I go, that's so weird. I wanted to buy a church. And she showed me this was the same church I had seen 3 years before. And the minute I walked in, I can say I heard angels singing. It was this 100% resonant yes in my body. It was not in great shape. And my realtor at the time told me she didn't even want to write the contract. She said, this is a bad investment. It's in a not great neighborhood. You're a single woman. I don't want you to buy this church. And I said, I'm buying the church. Either you sign the contract, give me the contract, or I'm gonna go with another realtor. So it's really funny that even though I had this internal impulse, regardless of what outside people were telling me, there was just something I felt in my bones that this was not only my home, but it was also a place for me to have community and gatherings, and that it's more of a work-live space than just me living here. It didn't look great when I first bought it. I could see one of my blessings, I think one of my gifts, and also one of my curses is that I can see potential. I think I've dated too many people on potential. But sometimes that potential actually works out. In this case, it did. There were, for example, every time it rained, we would have to get buckets and big plastic tarps and funnel all the water because this place was like a colander. There was water everywhere. These stained glass windows that you see were just riddled with holes. It looked like a machine gun had done. It was actually hail damage from a couple storms that the previous owner never fixed. There were holes in the floor. Just so much was in what people see disarray, but I didn't see any of that. All I saw was this incredible structure. I felt the energy of it. So I looked beyond all of that, because really those are just cosmetic things, that can be fixed. It did take several years. A lot of people ask me when touring the home, like, how long did it take you to remodel the home? And I often say, you should ask the church how long it took to remodel me, because I was being transformed inside. I had just gone through a divorce. I was going through a divorce. I was, my children were grown. I was facing empty nests. So I was at a place in my life where I was being transformed internally at the same time as I was transforming this home. So I we had this symbiotic relationship going on. It was a very special time in my life. I get a little teary always remembering that time. This is my living room that was formerly the sanctuary of the church. The ceilings are, I think, at the peak around 33 feet tall. The amazing thing is, while the space feels really large, once you're in it, it actually can feel very warm at the same time, which I take great pride in that. And these are original stained glass windows, mostly original. I did have them repaired because of damage, as I said earlier, and this repair took about 2 years because it's done very meticulously by hand. Everyone I had working on the exterior of the church were historic approved tradesmen or craftsmen that were able, or craftswomen actually, did a lot of the stained glass. So I went to great extents to try to replace the stained glass to as close to original as I could, even though they didn't make exactly this type of stained glass any longer. The walls are all original, brick walls. I did whitewash them, and all of the wood that you see, these floors, are 120-year-old soft pine. They dent very easily. There's still little heel marks in them, which I left. I did have them refurbished. But you know what's amazing about the floors is they're not hardwoods. The church didn't have the money to purchase hardwoods, and I didn't have the heart to cover up the soft pine. So I just had them refinished and live with the beautiful soft pine that they also lived with. It was funny, when I first moved into the church, I kept telling my assistant I wanted a swing in the living room, and it took her about 2 years, and finally I said, hey, what is happening with the swing that I want in the living room? She's like, you're serious? And I was like, yes. I mean, I have this great ceiling, I have this amazing space, why don't we have a swing? So I worked with some local metalsmiths that came in, and they actually built this swing, and I had structural engineers come in. It can hold up to 2,000 pounds, even though we didn't quite need that, but there have been, lots of kids rumbling on it and things. And I spent a lot of hours on this during my divorce, just swinging back and forth. So it's normally a focal point when people come in. They immediately want to take a picture on the swing, get on the swing. And my great niece, she was 10 from Arkansas when she came in and saw it. She said, Aunt Suzy, everyone needs a swing in their living room. And I just love that. I said, they do. So, and I have had some friends that have put swings in even like a 10-foot ceiling. It's nice just to be lifted off of the ground sometimes.
Welcome to our home. You are in the living room. This is the main space where we hang out as a family with friends, and it's the space you enter as soon as you come into the house. So this presented us with a lot of design challenges, but I hopefully think we found a lot of solutions. Because it has so many traffic patterns, with the main entryway being there, the entry to the dining room, and all the bedrooms off of here, we really had to think carefully about furniture placement and then build out the pretty stuff from there, if you will. So in the overall space, we have a sofa here. In my dream world, I wanted it back there, but you would be walking right into the sofa from the front door. So we left a traffic pattern behind, and it makes it really intimate, and it still makes it so we can fit 6 people comfortably in here. So we've got a sofa, we've got these beautiful chairs that I love. In fact, it's a really sweet story. One of the wonderful girls at our studio, I had ordered these chairs, and it was in the depths of COVID, and they were taking forever to get here, and she didn't tell me that they had arrived, and I came home one day and there they were, and so I was very excited. But I love the fabric. It's a performance fabric, and we've got kids and dogs, and I want things to show some love over time, but I want them to patina. I don't want them to look destroyed. And so it was really important to me to have a performance fabric, but that it also feel comfortable. Wanted to add a little funk here. We have lots of layers. I try really hard to do really classic upholstered pieces and then layer some funky fabrics in on the traditional as well. There's a mixture of textiles here. I love textiles. I come from a family of people that just love tactile things, whether it's hardwood or whether it's fabric, whether it's made in the United States, whether it's made in India. And so I somehow have ended up, I'm a very large collector. I'm not a hoarder, I'm a collector, it's curated, with a whole bunch of textiles. Some have come from family, I pick them up when we travel, but this is a pretty Suzani that we have. And then we've got a really pretty Indian block print throw draped over the living room sofa, another beautiful alpaca throw on the other chair that lives in the window. And what I love about them is they do add a coziness factor. It's very important to me to have a space where when people walk in, they want to curl up with a glass of wine or they want to curl up with a cup of coffee and feel welcome. And so having throws and blankets and texture around, I think really encourages that. I have an addiction to both artwork and mirrors, and they collect and collect and collect, and so I have to really be intentional about putting them up. But this particular mirror, it's a federal style mirror, and actually there are a few things in the house that have a similar tale. It is from a show house that we did, and we wanted two ends of this big porch to have some reflection to them. And so we ordered these two Whopper mirrors, and at the end of it, we were like, what do we do with these? And I was like, I want one. And Kate was like, I want one. And so here she is. What I love about her is that she's a she, I've decided. She's convex, and so she reflects all of the light, which is really important because we don't have giant windows in this house, and I do love natural light. So in each room, I try to incorporate some mirrors because it really helps throw the light around and really helps lighten up the space. And so that concaveness also reflects the space and the light throughout. It's flanked by two paintings that I love, love, love. We were traveling in Paris and went out to the flea markets one day, and we were freezing. I mean, it was so cold. I'm a wimp about the cold, but it was freezing. And we went out there and found this one little tiny dealer, and she had a heater. So we crawled into her booth and went through and just came out with piles of stuff. And so these were two of my absolute favorites that we came home with, some vintage Parisian pieces. Then this is probably the main focal point, or this is the main focal point of this room. So when you come in the front door, you see this immediately. And if you're looking straight onto the sofa, you see it. And I have a lot of artwork that I've collected over the years, some gifted, some picked up on trips, etc., that I wanted to display, but also we had these beautiful panels. So we did a show house project and we had 5 of these panels and didn't know what to do with them. And so, like I said, we've got a few things that have this story. And so brought them home, and my darling husband helped hang them on the wall. So we created this panel across and then actually wired through them to add the sconces, because we also needed additional light in here because there's just the one window. And because I didn't want to mess those up, we used this gallery rail system. There actually wasn't a dealer locally that did it, so we actually pieced it together with different drapery pieces and some antique hooks and chain and created this gallery rail, so I didn't have to put any holes in these beautiful panels, and they're easily change outable. So they've each got little hooks on the back, so you can just pop them off at any time and then piece them back together. That's actually another piece from that same cozy little place in Paris. But this is just a wall of stories from our lives. I mean, this is West Point. My father went to West Point. There's a couple of pieces that are seascapes that were my grandmother's from an artist that she loved. There's one of our daughters asked for a picture of Santa for Christmas one year. And so this is Santa flying over our little cottage. And I have a very similar one. I don't know where my child got this idea because it truly wasn't from me. But there's a similar one that Santa gifted me when I was a kid of the house I grew up in that I pull out at Christmas. And then that's a piece I did in college. I mean, it's just a mix match. And then this piece is one of my favorites. Our youngest daughter did that. And so we framed it up real swanky for her. Another space, well, this is right in front of the door when you walk in. And I think I mentioned how important it is that, especially in a small house, that it work for you. And this is an important piece of how it works for us. I have a big irritation when I have to trip over shoes, and apparently I'm the only one in my home that has this problem. And so we came up with this storage solution here. So all of our shoes go flying under there, and then our girls are bigger now, but this old desk that actually my husband found pops down, and they can sit down, put their shoes on for the day and head out, or shove them under there when they get home as well. Nobody has to trip over them. And then this is one of my favorite pieces in the whole home. When my husband and I were married about 3 years, he was in the Army and went to Iraq for 13 months. And during that time, I was finishing up graduate school. And so for graduation, he mailed me this beautiful rug, and it tells the story of 1001 Arabian Nights. And I just love it so, so much. And had to have it framed. I think some people might have rolled it up and shoved it in a closet or kept it in a drawer, but for me it was so special it had to go on the wall. In fact, it was framed by the framer we used when I was growing up. And I took it to her and she said, "You're not gonna be able to afford this if I stitch it on for you. So you need to come stitch it on." So I actually went to her framing studio and stitched each one of those on so that I could afford to have it framed on top.
Let's head to the dining room. Like I mentioned, we love to entertain, and to me, the best dining experience is around a round table because everyone is equal around a round table. No one can really dominate the conversation. Everyone can hear a little bit better. This table seats 6. I literally had to count my own chairs. It seats 6, but I have this really cool extender that folds out and goes on it, and it expands the seating to 12. So I can seat 12 people in here, which is wonderful for the holidays. And I had a big tablecloth made for it that's a big zebra print, so it's kind of a fun, exciting vibe. And I just love it. The other thing I want to show you in here is what I did with these chairs because, like I said, family friendly. So I had them upholstered with a pleather. So I'm telling you, you cannot destroy these things. I had just a cream fabric for years, and I was like, that's not wearing so well. So when I had them redone, I decided to just go full on family friendly with pleather, which I think is pretty smart if you ask me. The other thing I want to point out in the dining room is that I have a lot of surfaces that can easily change into a bar or a buffet. So, you move these 3 things and you've got, maybe you want to put all of your desserts here that you can easily access while you're eating your dinner. Or maybe this is where all the drinks go. Often the table gets so full with the food, there's not room. Or over here, same thing. Maybe it could be stunning to set this up as a bar, self-serve bar, so when people come over, they can do their own drinks while you're doing other things. You don't have to wait on everyone hand and foot all the time. Oh, look at this, you guys. This is pretty cool. You might not be able to see it, but this is my great-great-grandparents' wedding certificate that I had framed from Germany. So I just think it's so beautiful, and I love mixing things like that into the house, things that, it's not art, but to me it's so sentimental and it's so beautiful and it adds such a nice layer to the room. And I like that it's stuck behind this thing. I think it kind of adds an interesting little moment. I love animal print. I wear it all the time. There's probably some in every room of my house, and I have heard the rule that you're only supposed to have 1 animal print in a room, but I actively defy that. So the rug in this room has a leopard border and a leopard center. So I have these pillows that I love. I got these at Ballard years ago, but I've been in love with them for years. And they're really bold, but to me, honestly, in my mind, animal prints function as a neutral. I think they look amazing with a stripe, with a plaid. I mean, I can't really think of anything I wouldn't put an animal print with. It's sort of a problem. This gentleman gets a lot of commentary. People ask me all the time, "Oh my gosh, where did you get that?" And to me, this is one of those things you bring into a house that's going to add some personality, right? I found it in a vintage store. He has 4 heads or faces, maybe more. He's got a lot of noses, but it's just cool, right? It's just something that you're not going to be able to find when you go out shopping on, in the mall or online. I really think it's important to nab those little things that speak to you when you're out and about and you're like, oh man, I love that. That's so cool. I haven't seen anything like that. Grab it, take it home, find a special spot for it. Yeah, he can't get enough attention. So this is a fun little piece, and I'll talk about these things. So I find it really interesting over time when you are drawn to things, how collections sort of come together. So I bought these two things, like 5 years ago on some trip to LA. And then I found this thing like 3 years ago at a market in France. And then someone gave me these for Christmas 2 years ago. And somehow, it all just comes together when you find things you love. And I always try to cast a fresh eye around the house and see what I've got and realize, oh, look, those three things would really look fabulous together. If they weren't living together in a collection like this, I don't think they'd have the same kind of impact that they do when they're all like that together, grouped. And so, I encourage everyone to and myself, to keep an eye out for what you're drawn to and what you already have and what might really work well together with what you already own. So this, I really like pieces that function as well as look good, right? So this fits this space perfectly, but the important thing to me is that it has lots of storage. So I have a pressure cooker. If any of you have a pressure cooker, you know that they're ginormous. And so this thing fits my pressure cooker perfectly, and it lives in there. And then all the other space I use for booze and mixers. And so when we're setting up that DIY bar and people come over, it's all easily accessible right in here. I pull it out, set up a beautiful bar. And then the bottom shelves hold oversized platters and an extra set of flatware that I have. So form and function all together. Has to work. So here we are in the kitchen, which, I think for most people is the heart of the home. When we moved in, this was much different. It had an octagonal island right here, very, very weird. And so, but, like I said, we lived with it for many years while we figured out what was the best way to function in the space. Not just how it was going to look, but how was it going to function for us as a family. And so we ended up changing this into a family room and kitchen. This room back here used to be my son's bedroom. But we didn't have a way to get to the backyard. And we have a pool in the backyard. And so literally you had to walk down our driveway, out the front door, down the driveway, around back to get to the pool. And so I labored for years, I'm not kidding, over what's the best way to get to the backyard because I didn't really want to take his bedroom. Could we go out the side of the kitchen? Could we, there aren't many options. And so finally we were like, we're going to have to do it. So we ended up incorporating his room into the kitchen and made a keeping room and a kitchen. And it really functions beautifully because, everyone sits here, there are bar stools, we work, we chat, but you're not super into the mess of the kitchen. And then it's also super convenient to the dining room, so it's nice. Let me show you the things that I sort of saved on and the things that I splurged on. So if you look over here, this is a long run of cabinetry that holds all of our dishes, food, everything, is because we have no upper cabinets on the upper side of the kitchen, just on this side. All of the cabinetry in the kitchen is actually Ikea cabinetry. And so definitely where I saved, I bought the wood cabinetry and then I had it all painted professionally. And so it really has functioned well. I feel like it's been more than 10 years that I've had it, 15 years, and it's been lovely. But then I splurged on this, I think, beautiful tile that to me, I still love it. I love the gray and white, as you can tell. It's a little problem. And then my countertops, back to being family friendly. Like, I just don't think I could live with a marble countertop because it's too alive for me. I'd be constantly wiping up the lemon juice and the marinara and the red wine. And so instead, we got the quartz Caesar stone countertops, and I have been so pleased. They, to me, still look brand new and function so well and clean up super easy. So great choice as far as I'm concerned. We did put in this butcher block between the sink and the stove, and we actually use it as a butcher block. We oil it and use it as I don't put raw meat on it, but veggies and things like that, we chop right on here. It's definitely worn with age, and I just love that. It's a kitchen that's used and loved, and it's got memories all over it, and I just think that's beautiful. Oh, look, a live plant. I have one or two in the house. So this is where we spend a whole lot of our time. This is what is now our family room. And this is the kids' favorite chair. And when I talked about that zebra tablecloth, it's this same exact fabric. So when I fall in love with something, I guess I can't get enough of it. Again, a sunbrella fabric, just like that white sofa in the living room, which I think is great for the tablecloth as well, because it's super durable. It's not going to stain. If you're spending all that money to have a tablecloth made, you want to make sure it's going to last you a lot of years. And then, the other thing about it is, when you have teenagers sitting here eating pizza, same kind of thing. You wipe it off and it's clean. And the other thing is it doesn't fade in the sun. So this room gets a lot of sun, and so the pattern doesn't fade, and just continues to look great after all these years. I love a swivel chair too, because you can talk, you can watch TV. It's perfect, right? I just love it, and it's super comfy. So this is another morning spot for me. Oh, let's talk about this mirrored wall. So like I said, I live in Atlanta, in the city, and so I have a neighbor probably 15 feet from me, 20 feet, and this used to be, there was a window here, but when we were doing the room, I knew that I didn't want to be looking out that window at my neighbor all the time. But it was important that the room still felt light, and I wasn't sure how light I could keep it without having a window here. So I decided I would put these antique mirrors in to kind of reflect the light around the room, as well as just make it feel bigger and more open. And I've been really pleased with it, and people are like stunned. They're like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. But it was very simple to do, simple to execute, and I really feel like we got a lot of bang for the buck for that idea. Now, you'll notice like these windows that face out back, I don't have any drapery back here. I felt like it would be too much in the room, just crowd us in a little too much. I wanted it to feel really open to the backyard and to the activities that were going on out there. So I kept these intentionally bare for the room.
Welcome to the foyer. This is a small space in our house, but it's also important because it's the first thing you see when you walk in the front door. This is one of my favorite pieces in the whole house, actually, and it took me forever to find this. I mean, literally years. And then I stumbled upon it at Scott's Antique Market here in Atlanta, which is, it's like a huge antique market that people from all over the Southeast come to, and it's once a month. And I found this piece, and I really fell in love with it. Of course, it's an antique, but I love like pieces that have little details, and I thought this was really cute because it had just little like inlay, and the scalloping here at the bottom is just so precious, and I love this piece because it was unique. And one of the other things that I am starting to collect besides oil paintings is these little boxes. These are chinoiserie boxes or tea caddies, and I just really love chinoiserie. So I thought this was a great place to display the collection when you walk in the front door. You know, you see something again that I love. And then this is a antique French mirror. Has a scallop detail on it. Just it kind of, you know, looks good with the scalloping on this chest. And I have this sweet little antique alabaster lamp. So it's a pretty simple foyer, but you know, again, all the pieces have meaning, and I found these pieces, like most of the pieces in my house, you know, over time. It's not something that I feel like a house just shouldn't always be like instant. I don't believe in instant house, instant decorating. I think it's something that you collect over time. So that's the first thing when you see that you see when you walk in the door, and I love it. So when you walk in the front door, it's a kind of an open concept, you know. To the right, you see the living room, and then to the left, you have the dining room. And so we'll get to these rooms in a little bit. But it was important that in a home like this, where you have these doorways that open to each other, that it really flows. You know, that's very important to me. in my home and with my clients' homes, you know, you want cohesiveness. You want each room to have its own personality, but you know, when you're looking from one room to the other, it has to make sense. Welcome to our living room. This room is where we actually spend the most time, and it's one of my favorites in the whole house. I think when we originally were looking at this house, this is really what sold me on the house. And I think the reason I love this room so much is you could see all the decorative molding along the ceiling, and that is original. And we'll show you the fireplace here in a second, but that's also one of my favorite features. So this room was a challenge because of the layout. This is where we're spending so much time, so it was important to me that I can, you know, have space for everyone to move around, for little Collier to play, but also when we entertain, that there's enough seating for our friends and family. When I started decorating this room, honestly, the thing that I started off with was this fabric right here. The curtain fabric it's an English print, it's by Jasper, and that was my color palette for the whole room. I wanted something warm in here, so I really started off with that. I found these botanicals at an antique shop. The rug, it was a miracle to find a rug that worked in here because just the colors that I used are, I wouldn't say you see it as much as, you know, you see maybe some light blues that a lot of people use, or grays or creams. You know, this is a very warm room, and I definitely struggled when I was designing this room. You know, I could do everyone else's houses, but I can't do my own. So this took me forever, but I love this room so much. And then I want to share with you quickly, you have to see this mantle. It's my favorite thing, probably in the whole house. This is the original mantle from 1938, and I just love the detail on it. When we bought this house, the marble was actually cracked. It was in really bad shape. So we replaced this. I love the way an old, you know, a honed soapstone looks. I think it's so classic. So I did this, added, you know, an old fireplace screen, and you know, it's the focal point of the room. So I just love it so much. And if I was moving, I would try and take this thing off the wall, but I don't think I could. So originally, we did not have bookcases in this room, and I love, you know, design books, architecture books, art books. So I needed a place where I could store my books. I had my friend who's a carpenter who does a lot of work for our clients come over and make these great bookshelves for me. Also, great place to hide, you know, some kids' toys. So I just love a bookshelf in a living room. So we had a lot of fun designing those. Something really cool that I have to show you guys is this photograph right here. I actually used this in a show house recently, and I fell in love with it, and I just had to purchase it for myself. This is a Slim Aarons photograph, and you could see Mick Jagger, and that's Marianne Faithfull. She's a British singer. And that is Desmond Guinness from the Guinness family, and this photograph is from 1960, and it's taken at one of his castles in Ireland. So I thought it was really cool. I like having something in a room that, you know, maybe you wouldn't expect. My husband plays music also. He is an amazing guitarist. So I thought this little nod to music was fun. So I kind of threw that in for him, and he loved it, of course. So surrounding this piece are some antique French oyster plates, and I'm obsessed with the colors in these. You don't really see that color a lot. You know, a lot of the times with oyster plates, you might see white ones or pink ones or maybe dark brown. But I saw these, and they were definitely a little out of my budget, but I made the splurge, and I think I found just the perfect place for them. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, again, it's just something that you wouldn't normally maybe think to put in your living room on the wall, but I just think they add such a neat, you know, decorative element, and they frame out that the photo really nice. So of course the colors are amazing, and it just worked with the blues and the browns, and everything in this room. So I think they're perfect. So as I mentioned before, you know, I like to collect things. I'm at a point in my life where, you know, I can collect things that I like, and I'm always on the hunt for antique oil paintings. And I have a certain aesthetic that I look for when I'm on the hunt for antique oils. You know, I'm not a huge fan of the pastoral scenes or still lives with people. You know, I think I usually look for beautiful landscapes. Traditionally, I'm looking for English oil paintings, maybe Italian oil paintings or French oil paintings, and I like them to be smaller, and I like to put them in groupings. And the frames don't have to be perfect. I think that, you know, that's what makes them beautiful, is the patina. So I love this little, I think this is actually a watercolor, and it fell off the wall once and the glass broke, and I'm like, whatever, I still love it, so I'm gonna hang it anyways. But this is a little watercolor. I think this is looks like a boating scene. And then, you know, I have this little landscape over here. I have another, you know, water scene, and then just a beautiful little landscape right there. And I just love gold frames, and I think they're just special, and each little one tells a story. So I'm always on the hunt for those. And of course, you know, it's kind of, you have to be careful you don't overpay for these, but I'm always, you know, on the hunt for them. And, you know, sometimes in an antique shop, you might find a little tiny one like hidden in the back of something or on the ground, and usually those are the real treasures.
This is the dining room, which is actually the entry to the space. So we jokingly call this our foyer. When this was my grandmother's house, this was the living room. So I can't remember, I think the TV was over there when they were here, and they were built-ins. Now that we have a much bigger living room since we added on in 2019, this is our very spacious dining room, which is great because we still host a bunch of friends and family. We've gotten to do Thanksgiving once. We have a huge Christmas party. Easter's here, which is fantastic. So we have all this space for a kid table to expand this table out. This buffet is one of my very, very, very favorite pieces of furniture. This is my first big girl purchase. We got it at Scott's, and I love it so, so much. One of my favorite features is this little hidden wine storage down here that makes me very excited. And these sconces are some of my favorites as well. The rest of this has my grandmother's cut glass collection, and Molly, my daughter, my 3-year-old, her tea set. She takes her tea very seriously, and even though this is in the dining room, we take it out all the time. It's just so adorable. We're big tea drinkers. We're of the British Isles. We're Irish, so I probably shouldn't say British. We kind of don't like them. The dining table is gigantic. It's kind of our only in-progress piece of the room, since it is actually our old kitchen island. This is a couple of pieces of Ikea countertops smashed together, and it has adjustable base, so it can be island height, countertop height, or it can drop down to table height. So after the renovation, we just moved it in here to have a big old dining table. And eventually I want to get a big, beautiful table. But for now, I can do really fun tablecloths. So for Molly's birthday, we did some Liberty fabrics on it. This is an S. Harris fabric called Mega Chintz that I'm obsessed with. It is mega huge, and it has big old bright flowers on it. This one in the middle with the hot pink on it is my favorite. I'm actually going to use this for a shower curtain upstairs, but for now it is our pretty tablecloth for the dining room. It's pink. That's one of my favorite things, is that it's pink. As I spoke about earlier, my husband is so sweet and just encourages me to take risks and be fun, and he was very into letting me do this pink. It is Blushing by Sherwin-Williams. And just kind of this light coral color pink, and it makes everybody really pretty when they're having dinner in here, as do these incredible Jim Thompson drapes that I would eat, but you would see the marks if I did that. These are Jim Thompson silk, which is just, one of my favorite things. 2 more things I want to mention in here. are these peacock chairs. I love a peacock chair. It is reminiscent of Charlene's chair in Designing Women, if anybody recalls that magnificent show that inspired me as a designer. These chairs are 1920s, and I upholstered them in vinyl on the seat and satin on the back and on the outside back. So they look really luscious, but they're actually super durable because we have a good time in this room. Taking over the house, I think, is a really careful process because my family's all here in Decatur, which is just a little pocket right outside of Atlanta. We're Atlantans, we're Decatur dwellers. And so my uncles, my mom's 3 brothers all live in the same area. And so we all still come back here. So it is a responsibility in taking over the house. And so I was at first tread very lightly. We also had very little money when I first bought the house. So there wasn't much that I could do to the house. But at first I tread very lightly, and my uncles very quickly were like, do it, go for it, do something. My godmother, who's my mom's cousin, was kind of the financial behind us buying the house. And so she was also part of that. So when we first bought it, we took up the carpet. There was emerald green carpet in the now dining room. It was the living room at the time. And we did like little things like that because there was hardwood under it, and we repainted and kind of made it ours. This is our breakfast room, which is really where we dine every day. And it is the joke in my family, which I'm sure is the joke in most people's family, is that everyone's always in the kitchen. And in this being a family house, the kitchen has expanded several times. When we get to the kitchen, I'll show you how small it was and how big it's become. So I'm so glad we popped out to create an actual breakfast room. Still, people remain in the kitchen, which is great, very productive. I don't cook, so I don't really care. But the people who do cook get very irritated. So we have this spacious breakfast room. This is a great place when people are standing in here. People can still dine. We've surrounded it in windows, which is magnificent for all the light to come in. This dining table is not the nicest thing in the room, but it is one of my very favorite things, and we use it often with Gordon Dunning because it's a great table for kids. This is a stylish, classic tulip table, but it's super durable, and Molly can do whatever on it, color on it, even though we don't allow that. That still happens, and it cleans up really quickly, and it's great for circulation. I love a settee, a built-in, a sconce. I love nooks. I say that all the time. So I was dying to have a settee in the breakfast room. When I was pregnant, I remember my mom cooking in the kitchen, and I was just lounging on the buffet, feeling awful with morning sickness. Preemptively, I think, listening to Christmas music. So it has this like great come on in feel that's awesome. So sometimes, like this morning, I can remember Molly and Chris and I were all sitting on one side of the settee, kind of facing this way, and it's great. So we all kind of gather around this. It has an indoor-outdoor fabric on it that's really, really durable, and it's traditional. So I like that kind of juxtaposition of this modern and traditional. And then these really comfortable chairs that have some cane on them. So this is a great mix of weirdness. I know I'm not talking about the elephant in the room, which is either the wallpaper or the fella over the settee. The wallpaper was actually the last thing we did in this room. Shocker. It kind of found me. It is Cole & Sons, and it's this incredible mural that I love so much. It just connects the entire house. When you can look from the breakfast room into the dining room, you can see the drapes, the pretty mustard silk drapes, but you can also see into the living room and see the blues and greens, and it just really is everybody's friend that brings everyone together, and I love it. Then we've got Clarence. This is Clarence over the settee. He is put over the window because we needed a focal point. It was just like windows, windows, windows. I know, I'm complaining about windows. What the heck? He was we pulled him at Gordon Dunning for something where we were looking for a lot of portraits, and I just fell in love with him. We've called him a lot of different things, but Clarence is really stuck, and I love that Molly calls him Clarence. I think it's the cutest thing. The feeling I definitely want when folks walk in is come on in. Come on in, take your shoes off, get a drink, snuggle in, chat, be comfortable. That's definitely the feeling. My design style is so hard for me to narrow down. I am traditional at heart, but I'm definitely a weirdo in there. There's a granny who lives deep inside me who is getting bigger and more flamboyant all the time. I love funky, weird things. And I very much appreciate modern. So there's a lot of different things, and I'm not 100% sure that our clients are always worried about things flowing. Will it flow from room to room? I'm not so worried about it, and I think it kind of shows, but it makes my heart happy. Okay, so this is the kitchen. This is definitely, for us, the whole idea of it being the heart of the home is true. I do not cook, but my husband literally bakes fresh baked cookies every single night, which is amazing. Thank God I don't eat them. So I became obsessed with mosaic tiles that they started to use in the 20s, even though this house was built in the 50s. I wanted to keep that tradition going, even though it's not in my house. And here's this incredible runway that now my child does hopscotch on, which makes me so, so happy. It's like a runway of incredible imagination that can be happening. This is not the original floor. It was probably linoleum, but this is the original kitchen. What's fun about this room is that it actually ended at this beam. So when my mom lived here with her brothers, it was just this quadrant, and this laundry closet was not here. I cannot open this for you. A lot of things will fall on me, so I can't do that. And then we opened it up and made this big kitchen, which is just so important for life. The countertops are soapstone. I'm obsessed with soapstone. I love that it takes on a spirit. There are scratches in here. There are places, I remember the first Christmas, my brother-in-law opened a bottle of wine. I actually wasn't here, but he opened a bottle of wine and left a ring on the table and was all worried about it. And I'm like, no, that adds to the story. Like, we love having a story in it, it's great because it kind of stops people from having to worry about messing anything up. Yeah, the laundry doors are one of the DIYs that my husband and I did together. So I've mentioned that my husband knew what he was getting into. We got married at the same year that Lathem and I started Gordon Dunning. My name actually wasn't Dunning at the time that we started Gordon Dunning. So he knew what he was getting into. He knew he was getting an interior design wife, and he has really bought into letting me do what I want to do, but also do his work. So we created these laundry room doors together. He actually made those holes and painted them and did all that beautifulness. So we love that focal point now looking from the living room. It wasn't as pretty before. It was like some bifold builder ickiness before. Making this feel more like a living space is definitely intentional. We joke all the time. Our director of operations keeps joking that she is starting a movement about islands out of living rooms. And I think the open concept is great for function, but it is starting to it's putting all this utilitarian and comfort all together. So we wanted this to feel a little bit more like a living room and a little bit more historic. We added the hardware on the cabinets on the island is different from the hardware on the perimeter, which is part of telling that story. I think it's obvious to everyone this wasn't a giant chest, but we wanted it to kind of have that idea. So you also notice that there's nowhere to sit on the side of the island, like you see a lot of islands with an overhang for folks to sit. This is all storage, all a big work table, hard-working space. I need to get people out of the kitchen. I do have a couple of little stools on the end in case somebody like me wants to sit on the end and drink wine while your husband chops things. I really do a lot for our family. It sounds like I don't because he cooks a lot. He's very helpful. I really appreciate him. This is our daughter, well, it's going to be both of our children. We have a 12-week-old and a 3-year-old. This is a perfect example of my husband's and I working together. I obviously love design and very aesthetically motivated, if you will. And we have a smaller house. We don't have a playroom. We don't have an extra space. So everything needs to function and be pretty at the same time, which is what good design is all about. So Chris and I built this little kitchen, which is definitely inspired by the British cottage, a little bit of a Duval kitchens feel. This is her little pretend LeConte range, and it just brings me so much joy that it exists. There's walnut countertops. This paint color is Foxhall. And then there's this wonderful fabric for her little drapes and her teeny tiny place to keep all her little toys. It's just so sticky cute. Guess what? She never ever uses it. But it sure is cute in our kitchen, and sometimes people sit on it. Maybe Sullivan will enjoy it.
Thanks for watching. For more Homeworthy content, be sure to like and subscribe.